Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's webinar, specifically over the Security Center, and we'll cover monitoring cyber attacks in the remote and hybrid work environments. My name is JT, Relationship Manager at Wursta. I would like to first introduce Patrick Della Peruta, our Solutions Architect, and Chris Hopkins Ward, our Change Management Specialist, who will be leading today's discussions. This meeting is being recorded, and all registrants will receive a link to view it later this week. We ask that you stay on mute because we do have a big crowd here today, and you can submit questions anytime using the Meet chat. We will answer them at the end of the presentation. This event is hosted by Wursta. A little bit about Wursta before we get started. Our mission is to help organizations maximize the use of the cloud. We work side by side to help people make good technology decisions and help grow their businesses in ways they wouldn't have the ability to do otherwise. This helps organizations develop cultures of continuous innovations powered by real-time collaboration. And with that, I'll pass it to Chris and Patrick.
All right, thanks for the intro, JT. Okay, so Patrick, hey, it's you and me again together, and you know that I'm a little inexperienced when it comes to admin console security stuff, right?
Yeah, I do, Chris, but that's okay. A lot of our customers are in the same boat, and that's what we're here to help with.
Cool. And this presentation is on the Security Center. So why don't you take the lead? Tell us what that is.
Sure. The Security Center is really a term given to the overall delivery package within Workspace, and it provides administrators advanced security information and analytics about your Google environment. And includes a couple of different tools to help remediate security issues.
Okay, like security issues like what?
Well, a couple different things. So things like spoofing and spam reports you're able to see in real time, reports on suspicious attachments, and for remediation, things like the investigation tool that allows you to pull back emails from the inboxes of users.
Did you say pull back emails, like emails that were accidentally sent out?
Well, that's one use case. Yes, I did. Why?
No, that's just cool that it can do that. No reason that I'm bringing that up.
I don't know if I believe it. Are you sure?
All right. Well,
what happened?
Okay, so sorry, I know this is unprofessional and we're presenting and all, but remember how our last presentation on DLP, which by the way, it was great. And if we have anyone on this call who missed that, we have a link for you. But anyway, you remember how we were working on that secret project with a highly classified and important individual?
Yeah, Project DeVito.
Yeah, don't say it so loud,
Sorry.
but yes, Project DeVito.
So what happened with Project?
Well, okay, well, with last week, we were able to stop emails from being sent with certain code words, you know, like DeVito and Project DeVito and Danny DeVito from being emailed out, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, I still made an oopsie this morning. The DLP blocked words, but it didn't block my email with an attachment in it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and it's an attachment of like a certain poster, advertisement, and with all the info, and he's posing with balloons and like another celebrity and the whole thing. And I accidentally sent that attachment to our entire internal team.
You addressed it to everyone.
Yeah, I sent it to everybody accidentally. I'm sorry. Am I in trouble?
No, Chris, not in trouble. I will help. Let me bring up the Security Center and show you how we can use the investigation tool to retract that.
Okay, you can help me.
I can. Okay, you remember this Security Center, or the admin console? The
admin console. I know this.
Okay, so the Security Center again it's comprised of a couple of different sections. You can find all of them under the Security section. So we're going to get logged out because Google loves to log you out. Any of my admin colleagues here will know the frustrations of that. All right, so back to the admin center, and we're going to go into the security section. Security section, a couple different sections here. We'll cover that, but we're going to go into the investigation tool.
Okay.
And what I can do here is to start to build a query to look for certain types of data. So in this instance, we are going to look for Gmail messages. We are going to look for you as the sender. I really should create a canned detector for this. Chris, do you remember what the subject line of your email was?
Yeah, it was something like, check this out.
All right, so check this out. So just to give you some context on what I'm doing here, right? So I'm using the investigation tool to run a search against my domain. I'm looking for all emails sent by you that has this subject line of check this out. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on search. This should return some results, and as you said, you did send this to everybody at our domain.
Oops.
Oops is right. Luckily, what you can so we can see a couple things. I can see that for the most part, all of these messages are unread. Good thing. So users haven't seen that message. Just to give you some idea of what the investigation tool can do for your own knowledge, I can actually click on the subject line and I can see information like the message headers. I can see what hops it took along the way. So a lot of good, useful information from an administrator standpoint. I can actually look at the body of the message as seen by the recipient. So if I was to click on this message section, I do have to provide a justification or a reason as to why I'm running this search. So I'm going to say Chris made a mistake. Sorry, Chris, throwing you under the bus a little bit.
I mean, it's true though.
Yeah. So what we can see here is I can see actually, yep, you indeed sent this message to all employees. It included I guess a JPEG attachment. So I can actually download that and take a look at what it is as an admin. So let's just open this. Chris.
Yeah, it's wrong. I know. I shouldn't have sent that.
I'm gonna get that off screen. Sorry, everybody. All right. So we now want to remediate. So what I can do from this panel is select all of these messages, and I'm going to click on Actions, and I'm going to click on Delete Messages.
Oh, cool.
So again, because I'm an administrator making changes against users' mailboxes, I do have to provide a reason. Chris made a mistake again. You know what? I'm going to put it that way. Now I do have to confirm that this is my final answer, so to speak. So I do have to, as an admin, put in this phrase here, delete 38 messages, and click on delete. Now, once I do this, this is going to be purged from the inbox of all of the recipients. The recipients, if they have not read that message, will have no idea that that message was ever sent to them. You can see the delete messages action is now in progress, and in just a second that will finish and those messages will be purged.
Okay.
Chris, do you feel better?
All right, you just saved my buns. Thank you. Appreciate it. Wow, all the stress is away from me now. I feel really good. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. You're so good at this.
I try. I'm here to help. So no worries.
While we're here, what else can you do in the security center?
Sure. I mentioned earlier that the security center as a term really is comprised of a couple of different areas within the security mindset. So we have the investigation tool, which we just looked at. A couple of weeks ago, we looked at data protection rules, right? So adding the keywords for DeVito, et cetera. Other areas within the security center include the alert center, which again we looked at a little bit a couple of weeks ago. So all of the alerts that we create, or all of the alerts that Google automatically creates, automatically feed into the alert center. It also has the security dashboard, which as a security analyst is something I'm in daily. And this is a collection of reports that Google provides around various cybersecurity related items. So things like how many of my messages are authenticated, how many messages are coming in that are being marked as spam, how many messages are my users marking as spam, which I use as an indicator or as a trigger to go in and adjust spam filters if I need to. Even things like spoofing. So if my domain is getting spoofed, how many of those messages are being delivered to my users with a similar spoofed domain name, things like that. And then lastly is the security health check as well. Now this is sort of a little bit basic, but Google does a good job of providing you a detailed list of various settings within Google Workspace, and then a pass or recommendation on that specific setting. So, for example, calendar sharing policy is a secure. You get a green check mark, and then for something else like access checker, you may get a recommendation from Google as to what their best practice is for that specific setting. So that's all included as part of the security center package.
Gotcha. And if I'm a security person in a company, I can access this from home or from wherever, correct?
That's right, and this applies to whether or not your users are working from home or working from an office. Absolutely.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. Well, this is all very useful, and I think I learned a lot just in the last like 5 minutes. Plus, you saved my butt, so I appreciate you, Patrick. So going back to our presentation, the way you just helped me, is that the way that we help customers at Wursta?
Great question. So yes, it's certainly part of it. So we offer a couple different security-related packages. One is the domain audit package. The domain audit package is really that security health check that we just looked at, but really a bit more mature than what Google provides natively. So we not only look at those high-level settings, but we get in depth to every setting configured within your environment. Upon completion of our evaluation, we provide the administrators and the customer a detailed report with a pass, fail, or neutral grade for each of the settings. And then we compare that against best practice for that specific setting. So we provide, again, a detailed report with remediation plans and best practices around those settings.
Got it.
Along with that, we have a number of security-related packages that a couple of which we've discussed: the DLP package, data loss prevention, mobile device management, and endpoint management, as well as email hardening or email domain hardening. So things like making sure your outbound email is properly authenticated, that your message deliverability is at 100%. Very important for organizations that are sending out marketing and email lead generations. They're getting your domain SPF, DKIM, DMARC, and now BIMI compliant, all as part of that email domain hardening package.
Gotcha. All right. So we offer quite a lot when it comes to the Security Center. And have we solved like customers' issues related to the Security Center in the past?
Yeah, we've done a number of email security and hardening, so getting domains DMARC compliant. And we have a couple of different packages around that, depending on organization size. That can scale up to large organizations, and at times we'll bring in a third-party partner to help with that. But on the security, just sort of remediation, yeah, I think another good example of how that investigation tool can be used is for phishing attempts. We had just recently, in the last week, organization, 1,100 users or so, they had a spam message that made it through their spam filters, ended up in the inbox of 1,100 or so users. Yeah, kind of crazy. The spam message actually included a link where credentials were being phished. They had one person that fell for it, and they wanted to get it out of the inbox of everybody else. They had no idea how to address the situation. So using the investigation tool, we were able to key or trigger on a couple of parameters around the email, so who the sender was and what the subject line was. Almost the same scenario, right? We are able to pull up all of the messages from the inboxes of those users, and then in one click, able to delete that spam message from everybody within the organization. Luckily, it was only the one credential that got phished, and we were able to remove it from everybody else within about, I think it was 12 minutes from the time they called us to the time we finished. It was about 12 minutes. So investigation tool is super powerful for scenarios like that.
That's a great example, Patrick. Awesome. So to recap what we just did, we enabled Security Center, Google Workspace. We talked about that. We talked about specifically how to use the investigation tool because someone made a mistake and an oopsie, and you helped me through that. We talked about the security health check, and we explored the Security Center dashboard. And we also discussed what Wursta can offer in terms of helping a company with their Security Center and in terms of what we can suggest. So with that, we can do some question and answer. But before we do that, I think JT has some announcements about upcoming events.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So before we get into questions, here's our upcoming event schedule. We've got 2 more events planned that you don't want to miss. So be sure to sign up or take a look at our website, Wursta-about/resources. We love your feedback. There's going to be a link in the chat that you'll receive, and you'll also receive a follow-up email with a quick survey to tell us what you thought about today's discussion. As Patrick said, we have the domain audit package and security package offerings for all registrants. Your Wursta rep will be reaching out to you to schedule a quick call to go over the details.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you, JT. Well, with that, we can completely open the floor to question and answer from our lovely and polite audience. We appreciate their time.
That's right.
Feel free to pop them in the chat, or, you know, I feel like we can also come off mute if you get a question that we can answer as well.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm happy to fill some space while we're waiting for some questions, or if we have any questions. Just to drill down into the investigation tool a little bit more. Super powerful tool that's exclusive, I believe, to the Enterprise Standard and Enterprise Plus Workspace SKUs. Google continues to add on top of what the investigation tool is able to do. So I touched on being able to retract emails. I've been a Google administrator for 12 plus years. I started when it was Google Apps and G Suite, Workspace, etc. All those things that we were able to show here are something that I had to use third-party tools or write an API to do, right, to be able to delete messages from inboxes, for example. Seems like such a simple task for an administrator to do. And certainly it was a long time coming on the Google admin side. So just to expand on that, and I think we did get a question. An easy way to identify an email as malicious. Good question, and it's sort of that's a hard question to peel back. So Google, I think, does a great job. Their spam filtering has gotten, I think, really on par with some of the big names that you get out there, Proofpoint and whatnot, right? So their spam filtering has gotten really, really good in terms of being able to identify malicious attachments or malicious email in general. And they do provide a couple of different ways for you to get in front of those malicious emails. So the security stuff that we just looked at is one. Certainly back within the Gmail service itself, and we'll take a look at real quick at the safety features, which again are exclusive to the enterprise SKUs, I believe, unless they've changed that. So Google has recently added all of these additional controls for inbound email as well. So looking through each one of these sections, right, I can drill down. Allow Google to automatically protect against encrypted attachments from untrusted senders. And Google, marks a sender as untrusted when it fails things like SPF and DKIM and DMARC, right? And then as an administrator, when these violations occur, when these incidents occur, I can choose a number of different actions to take, right? So I can keep the email, on its way to the recipient, which in most cases I don't want to do. In most cases, what we recommend is to have that filter into a quarantine so that the administrator team or administrators can go in and release and review and then release those messages as necessary. But you can see it has a bunch of different settings for attachments. Scrolling down the list here, it also does inbound email link scanning. So if there's any links embedded into an email, it can scan those. It can open attachments in a security sandbox before it's delivered to an end user. And then on the spoofing and authentication side, it'll use AI to try to determine spoofing based on your domain name, right? So if Wursta.com was spoofed with WERSTA instead of WU, Google would be able to identify that and say, this is a potential domain spoof, and they would add some sort of warning, or you as an administrator can add some sort of action to those kind of messages.
Awesome.
During your domain audit.
Sorry, Patrick, before you answer Randy's question, we had another question in the Q&A section, and I'm copying and pasting it into the chat so you can answer that one. We'll go by order of asked.
That's fair. Can this be done if you use a third-party email filter like Area 1 that is integrated with GWS? I don't know which piece exactly. So these features that I'm showing here can certainly work in conjunction with a third-party gateway that you have in front of Google, whether it's Proofpoint or Area 1 or Area 1, I think it is. So yes, if Proofpoint or Area 1 is your gateway for inbound messages, and that is doing its checks against inbound email, and you have your set of whitelists and rules set up in that system, and then it still passes over to Google. Google can still take action on those messages based on this. So yes, absolutely. During your domain audits, what was the low-hanging issues you tend to find with customers? Great question. So domain audit they've become really popular over since the world has changed over the last 14, 15 months now. The biggest, outside of email, the biggest thing that we've been working with organizations to remediate is Drive. And what has become, in some organizations' cases, the Wild West. They had set up Google Workspace or G Suite previously. They've allowed free access to Google Drive, so users within our organization have been able to create and share content at will. And now they're in a position where there are 100,000 files that are accessible on the internet. And 99% of those cases, the owner of those documents and the domain administrators have no idea that those files exist in that way. So the sort of the low-hanging fruit, one of the areas that we like to focus on is, one, checking those sharing settings and how that is set up, including items on shared drives, right? So best practices on shared drives for administrators, et cetera. We also include in that domain package a comprehensive report that's not technically available. It's not readily available in the Google admin console. So we will run a custom report against APIs to provide a detailed report of every file as it's shared from owners within our organization. So drive sharing is definitely the of the utmost importance to our organizations, and usually one of the ones that we can easily remediate in terms of the settings and the controls around that. Great question.
Awesome.
Cool. So yeah, some of the safety centers, I would want to do a time check. I think we are 25 after. Are there any final questions? And I can just see that Google has changed the layout of some of their buttons. I just noticed that the whiteboarding sections in a new area. So yeah, I mean, security, it's at the top of mind of almost every organization that we work with. If these are settings that you don't have access to and are interested in, your account rep will certainly be reaching out. And if these are settings, or if you're already on the enterprise SKU but not taking advantage of these settings, we'd be happy to work with you and provide some guidance on best practices. So with that said, Emily or JT, I'm sorry, I'll hand it back to you, or Chris, if you have any final comments.
Thank you everybody for your time. Really appreciate everyone's time
in
joining
Chris
me.
And Patrick,
Sure.
Before we sign off, what if somebody's not using Google Workspace? Is there a way to kind of help them see what might be out there in Drive? Because I know personally, when I was younger in my career, I would just create a Google account because that's what I used in college. And so if we weren't using Google, I would, which I now know is not a good thing. Is there a way to help folks in that boat?
Yes, a couple different ways. So one, if your organization's not using Google today, and you're interested in, say, the email hardening package, it's certainly something that we can do. We are email platform agnostic when it comes to email security. Becoming DMARC compliant helps everybody on the internet. So regardless of what platform, even though we're biased towards Google. In terms of the Google accounts, yes, that's a great question. If you are not currently a Google domain organization but are interested or thinking about it, a couple different things. One, we can work with individual Gmail accounts as needed if you're a small organization. But one of the features that Google provides when you're thinking about moving to Google is a conflicting account resolution. So we would actually be able to run a report and you'd be able to get a detailed list of accounts that have signed up for the Google service against your organization's domain name. Google provides that as a consumer service, right? So if my company was not using Google, but I went to google.com, I can actually create an account with my company's email address, even though we're not using Google. So yeah, there are a couple of different things. I don't know if, David, that answered your question directly, but yes, there are a number of things that we can work with, even if your domain is not using Google or your organization is not using Google. Great question.
Awesome, thanks.
Yep.
We got two more questions. People are no longer becoming question shy. So we got a question from Caesar. Talking about how to whitelist or remove warning banners of spamming and phishing emails.
Got it. All right. So, but as our users mark legitimate emails as spam and phishing, these emails get a warning banner. How could I whitelist and remove that banner? So there's a couple of different things here, and I have some time. I'm happy to go over here. You guys can hang with me as long as you would like. All right, so a question is, when a message comes into an inbox and ends up in the end user's mailbox, and they have a warning on that message already, and they mark it as safe. So it's an actual legitimate message. Maybe the sender, the domain sender, they're not taking proper precautions in terms of email security, right? So their domain maybe is not SPF compliant or DMARC compliant. So they're sending out messages and they're coming in, they look ugly. Because they have some sort of warning on them. So there's a couple of different things here. One, as an administrator, of course, I have no spam in here to demo this, but as an administrator, you definitely want to go into your whitelists. You can do a search for the top, and it should take you in. It should take you into the appropriate section. That's because I started making modifications here. So setting number one, you're going to want to whitelist those addresses or those domains. So by going into Gmail and then advanced settings, come on, admin console. And then advanced settings, you're able to build that whitelist of domains, right? And that could be, again, top level domain. For domains that are like unauthenticated, all right, so we can come into the whitelist here. Where am I looking at?
At the top.
Yep. Sorry. Email whitelist. So that is for email whitelist at the top here is actually for systems internally. So if you have a relay on-prem that sends out messages, things like that, you're going to want to whitelist that. Whitelist that there. If you want to whitelist a specific domain from a spam perspective, you're going to want to create a spam list for that. So here, we're going to say bypass spam filters for messages received from these addresses, and we're going to create a new one. So I'm going to create a new one. We'll call this Caesar in honor of the good question. So I'm going to create that. All right. So we now have a spam whitelist called Caesar. I can now go in here and add domains that I feel are safe. And I can do that in a couple of different ways. So I can comma separate these, right? So I'm going to put in Wursta.com. I'm going to put in demo.wursta.com, right? So I can add a couple of them at once. I can click on save, and now those are added. The one thing to call out here is this button right here, right? So if Google's marking a message as spam because it's failing SPF and DKIM and DMARC checks, having this button checked is really counterproductive. You're still going to get a warning on it because Google is looking for that authentication. So if you legitimately trust the sender, and that sender is not taking proper precautions on their email deliverability, then you could go ahead and uncheck that button. Again, it's risky, but you as an admin are going to make that call. All right, so this is saying any message from Wursta.com is not spam, even if there's no authentication passes on that message. So I'll go ahead and click on add setting. Oh, I got to give it a name. Caesar test. Sorry, I can't spell test. Caesar test. Right. So that would be another way to control that. At the end user level, if they are continuously receiving email from a sender outside of the organization that's getting marked as spam, Google's recommended action there is to add that sender address to your contact list. It's really as simple as that. So you go into your contact list. I would create a contact for whatever that email address is. Contacts or addresses that are in your contact book bypass Google's default spam settings. So that would be remediation step number 2 there. I hope that answered your question, Caesar. I'm sorry. Sorry the confusion. Gmail is the one adding the banner as users mistakenly mark legitimate emails as phishing. Is the one adding the banner as usual mistakenly mark. So all right. So yeah. So Google, I understand the question. So you're having a number of users mark messages as spam, which are and then in turn is causing Google's AI and machine learning to say all of these messages are spam. The remediation steps would be very similar. So you're going to want to go into your admin console. You're going to want to set a spam whitelist for that domain. And for users that this is happening to continuously, advise that they add that address to the contact book. Unfortunately, it's going to take the same way that it took Google some time to start classifying them as spam based on that feedback. Your users are going to have to do the opposite and start marking things as not spam or allowing those things in. So it's a little bit of Google's machine learning and AI playing into that. How much security is provided by rolling out FIDO2 compliant hardware keys through a company? I am a big fan of FIDO keys. Google's native two-factor, fully robust. It is on par with things like Okta and Duo, etc. Provides administrators a lot of control in terms of how it gets rolled out. I think Google is still using FIDO keys as their only form of authentication, or as their second factor. They are, right? Yeah. So I think they stopped using passwords a couple of years ago. They distributed FIDO keys to all of their employees, and that is their second means of authentication. So it is fully supported. It is, if you're using Google's two-factor, is something that you could limit, right? So you can say, I don't want to use SMS passcode. I don't want to use Google Authenticator. I only want to use FIDO keys. Just make sure you guys have some stock from when the users do lose those. So it does happen. But FIDO keys, I am a big fan. That's how I authenticate myself.
Yeah, that's a big thing when I worked at Google, is a lot of people lost their FIDO keys, but otherwise they were just replaceable and easy to find.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Great questions.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you everyone for attending this presentation between me and Patrick and JT. Again, please fill out the form of how we did the short survey, and then also register for our upcoming events. Our past events are also available under resources, and we will see you on the next one.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.